Hey all, this is Mark. I'm in the middle of fabric covering. I just thought I would do a very quick video about that, what I'm finding, talk about the tools I'm using. Might be of a little interest to people who haven't done this kind of thing yet. As you can see, I'm working on the trim tabs. I've still got a little bit to go on those. I basically finished most of the landing gear. That was an interesting process because of all of the angles and little protrusions and things like that. And if you haven't done fabric covering before, it's interesting to try to figure out what needs to be glued first, what needs to be glued second, and to avoid wasting a lot of fabric. I used the heavy fabric on the landing gear. I just figured that was a good idea. Rocks and gravel and things like that getting kicked up by the landing gear. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. It's probably not the nicest job that's ever been seen on these pieces of equipment, on this gear and frames and things like that, but it'll work. It won't come apart. I just talk a little bit about your tools. One thing that surprised me was just the sheer number of pairs of scissors that you apparently need to do this work. The most important pair of scissors that I have is this pair of Wiss industrial shears. They were close to $50 from Aircraft Spruce, and they're worth every penny. They are sharp. The only thing that ever is used with them is the Dacron fiber or fabric that we're covering the airplane with. I also have a pair of Fiskars picking shears, and those come in very handy when you're just cutting straight lines. I have a pair here of, I think these are Fiskars. It's just small scissors for doing small cuts. I also have this pair of Florian pinkers. This is a very interesting item, and it's come in handy sometimes. I wouldn't say that it's actually been worth the money I spent on it. And then of course I have just a regular pair of scissors here, Fiskars, for cutting basically anything else. So there's 5 pairs of scissors that I'm using in this process right now. That was a bit of a surprise. You got to have a pencil. You got to mark your lines if you're going to lay some tape down. Couple of irons. The hobby iron that everybody has, the digital one, that comes in handy, and it's pretty much a requirement. I'll tell you what I've got next to it though is the Fabric Pro iron, and I'm glad that I didn't bother trying a household iron. This iron heats up fast and it maintains its temperature. That is a really nice piece of equipment, highly recommended there. Of course you've got the big jug of glue. I also got the EcoBond in the linen color, along with several different sizes of tapes, and we've got the reinforcing tape. Buy these chip brushes to apply the glue, as well as a whole bunch of these small paper cups to put the glue in. You go through those really fast, so you may as well just go ahead and get a whole lot of them. You can get them off of Amazon for almost nothing. And I bought the chip brushes off Amazon too. I don't know that the synthetic bristles wouldn't be good enough, but because the brushes that are sold by Stewart Systems were natural bristle, I went ahead and bought natural bristle. Well, I've got some inspection plates here, the little rings, inspection rings. I'll be putting those on as well. Probably the number one thing though that you really want to make sure you've got is a wide table, or at least 2 tables. These are tables that I had at my office that weren't being used, and I brought them home, 8 foot by about 3 feet each, so I've got a 6 by 8 table. And you really need something like that because you're going to end up buying a roll of fabric like this right here. This is the Superflight 102 medium fabric, a 6-foot roll. And believe me, you don't want to have to be wrestling with that stuff on a small table. I tried it. It just didn't work. So this is much nicer. And that's one thing you don't actually see on those videos at Stewart Systems, They just happen to have a really wide, long table there to work on. You're certainly going to want that. Now, in addition to the landing gear and the trim tabs, I've done the initial fabric covering on the horizontal stabilizers. I still have a lot more work to do. As you can see, I haven't put tape on there. I haven't rib stitched it. We're going to begin working on that pretty soon. I think I'm going to use the stagger wing stitch. It seems to be pretty simple, and people seem to be pretty happy with that. So that'll be my first go at doing that kind of work. But it's beginning to get a little easier. It's beginning to actually in some ways be a little bit more enjoyable. I didn't think that it was going to be, but it's getting there. So that's pretty much where we are in a nutshell. If you have any questions, just put them down below. Be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching. Bye.